Hello, horror fans, and welcome back to the Script to Screen podcast, where we delve into the spine tingling world of horror cinema. Each week, we look at the scariest scenes, unmask the deeper meanings behind your favourite horror films, and explore the psychology of fear that keeps us coming back for more.
From script analysis to scene breakdowns, we'll be dissecting your favourite horror movies to see just what makes them tick. So whether you're a seasoned horror aficionado or just starting to explore the genre, join us as we unravel the spine-tingling stories that haunt the silver screen.
I'm Will.
And I'm Lee.
So great to be back with you, Lee. How have you been?
Well, soldiering on with my meagre existence on this mortal coil. How's about you, my friend?
Ooh, it's a little poetically bleak there from me, Lee. I'm not sure how to feel about that. No, I'm good, thanks. I'm passing fair. You know me. Yeah. So, what have you been watching this week? Anything good come across your radar at all?
Let's think. My youngest son and I partook in a paranormal activity marathon, which was a hell of a lot of fun.
Yeah. So you know what? I did see the first Paranormal Activity, but I think I checked out there. How many are there now?
Seven in total.
Wow. Yeah. So that really was a marathon, wasn't it? How do they hold up?
Well, surprisingly well, actually. I mean, 1 to 3 are all solid, spooky tales. Four dips a little in quality, but then five raises the standard really well. But then part six just kind of dumps all over everything to the point that the final installment has nothing in common with the rest of the franchise at all and exists just as a standalone tale bearing the franchise's title.
So what made part six so bad?
Oh man, like the one main rule of the activity franchise is that you never really see anything. I mean,
Yeah.
scary shit happens, and you might get a flash of a demonic face or some invisible entity like playing up on screen. But the fact that nothing overtly supernatural occurs on screen is what makes it so creepy. It lets your imagination fill in the blanks. But part six, aka the ghost dimension, breaks this rule by introducing a ghost camera that lets us see the demon stalking the family, and it's basically just the smoke monster from Lost.
Okay, so it's a little anticlimactic then.
I mean, well, put it this way. I mean, we were both watching it, and then when the demon first appeared on screen, we both quite literally just let out like a verbal ugh of disappointment. And from that point on, like the fear factor just left the building entirely.
Oh man, that's a shame. Do you know, I did have a real interest in the first paranormal film, actually. I thought the story of how that film was kind of put together and how that was made was really kind of pretty inspiring.
Hmm.
So it was Oren Peli, wasn't it,
Yes.
who was the first film. Obviously, kind of went on to produce some of the others, I think. But he was also involved in the Insidious franchise. Is that right?
I believe so. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. Still, in all fairness, I do applaud the effort on, in part six. It can't be easy sustaining a franchise for seven movies, and still find ways to keep things fresh. So, I got to
Yeah.
applaud their efforts.
Yeah, I know. I mean, like I said, part four was a dip in quality, but with part five, aka the marked ones, they did a really great job of refreshing the formula while still keeping what made the franchise great. It's just a shame that the last two movies kind of pretty much killed the franchise off. Part seven, aka Next of Kin, was actually pretty cool. It just didn't continue the story that we'd all become invested in over the last six movies, which kind of proved to be the final nail in the coffin, until the inevitable reboot recall hits, at least.
Yeah.
But anyway, enough about my paranormal viewing activity. What has been on your cultured viewing platter this week?
Well, this weekly I caught a few things and made a bit of time for myself and my movies. So I watched Thunderbolt and Lightfoot. I don't know if you've ever seen that.
Heard of
Um,
it.
but that's it's a Clint Eastwood, Jeff Bridges movie from Michael Cimino. And
Hmm.
you probably know Michael Cimino. He did the Deer Hunter, Heaven's Gate, a little bit ill-fated that one, Year of the Dragon.
Yeah.
So that was fun. Jeff Bridges is super charming, dude. He's like young, charming. It's really, really, it's a great performance. And there's a really great performance from George Kennedy in there too.
Yeah.
And I also caught Blue Ruin, which I thought was fantastic. And that's
Oh,
from
I've
Jeremy
been meaning to
Saulnier,
see that.
who,
Yeah.
I thought it was a great little revenge flick. And Saulnier also did Green Room, Hold the Dark, The Order, which we talked about the other week.
Yeah.
And I think Rebel Ridge is his latest. So I'd urge you to sort of check that out if you haven't seen it already.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, Rebel Ridge was pretty cool, and I love Green Room. Green Room's amazing. So
Yeah.
yeah, I will try and catch a hold of Blue Ruin at some point. So awesome. So my man, tell everybody what is strapped to the table for dissection this week.
Well, Lee, this week, I have to say, Lee, I'm quite excited. It is a big one. It's only the most requested movie to date. Yes, we're going to be
Nice.
taking a deep dive into Alien.
I mean, man, when you talk about iconic scripts, it really doesn't get much more genre defining than this bad boy.
Oh my God, absolutely. So, tell us why you've chosen this script, Lee.
Oh, it's Alien, man. I mean, what more reason do I need?
There's no more reason. You don't need any more reason, Lee. Yeah, before we start, I have to say, Alien has been consistently on my top five list for years, and I absolutely love this movie.
I mean, in all seriousness, though, there are a couple of points I'd love to take a look at while we're dissecting this script. First off, and we haven't really talked about holy shit scenes for a while,
Mm.
this film has undoubtedly the most iconic holy shit scene of all time, and it literally epitomizes the entire theory. Second of all, it gives us, of course, Ellen Ripley, the most iconic movie heroine of all time. So we'll be taking a look at just what it is that makes her such an enduring and beloved character.
Fabulous. So we are looking at the definitive holy shit scene and Alien's iconic movie heroine.
Absolutely. And before we dive in, I have a critically important question for you.
Okay, this sounds rather ominously.
Alien or aliens?
Oh, easy, dude. Hands down, Alien. What about you?
It's Aliens for me. I mean, don't get me wrong, I love the
Mm.
original. I recognize its impact and value to cinema, but I just love what Cameron did with the sequel. It's earned a place in my top 10 movies of all time. And, I've sat with all of my kids at one point or another and watched Alien and Aliens, and I think they all unanimously preferred the sequel. They all enjoyed Alien, but they just found it a little slow and, dare I say it, a little boring at times.
Well, what can I say? I think you've all displayed terrible taste there, Lee, in my opinion. I think, I have to blame TikTok, I think, for these younguns.
Yeah, I can't argue with that. Bless them and their 30-second attention spans.
Yeah. Okay, so Alien was unleashed on cinema goers on June the 22nd, 1979, and has brought in a box office of just over $109 million on an $11 million budget.
It's nice to see this movie got the recognition it deserved straight off the bat. So often we look back on the classics and find that they were vastly unappreciated in the day. The thing.
Yeah, man. Yeah, totally agree.
So we're going to be pulling double duty this week and comparing the movie to two different drafts of the script. The first by Dan O'Bannon, based on a story by Dan O'Bannon and Ronald Shussett, dated 1976 and weighing in at a colossal 122 pages. The second is the revised final draft written by Walter Hill and David Giler, based on the screenplay by Dan O'Bannon and dated October 4th, 1978, and clocking in at a slightly leaner 112 pages. Now, for simplicity, I'll be referring to these throughout the show as the O'Bannon and Hill drafts, respectively. And also, just for shits and giggles, I tracked down the personal copy of the latter script that belonged to the film's editor, Terry Rawlings. And this seems to be identical to the Hill version, but is full of handwritten notes, which makes for really wonderful viewing. So check it out if you can find it.
Yeah, cool. Anyway, so no more small talk, Lee. Join us as we take a deep dive into.
Hold the phone, brother. Before we
Ooh,
cut this baby open, I feel we should talk a little bit about the script itself and how it came to be, as the story behind it is well worth hearing out.
okay, well, hit me.
Okay, so Alien was originally conceived by the legendary Dan O'Bannon while working with John Carpenter on the classic Dark Star, and spun from a desire to create a far more terrifying creature than the now infamous beach ball alien that plagued the Dark Star. After Dark Star, O'Bannon worked very briefly on Alejandro Jodorowsky's doomed Dune adaptation, and it was here that he became enamored with the works of Swiss surrealist artist H.R. Geiger. Now, originally titled Memory and later rechristened Star Beast, The screenplay would go through several iterations before becoming what we are familiar with today. O'Bannon would join forces with Ronald Shussett, who is widely credited for coming up with the idea of the alien impregnating a member of the crew. And they would go on to sell this script to Brandywine Productions and 20th Century Fox. And it was at this point that the script was rewritten by Walter Hill and David Giler. They would introduce such elements as the android Ash and much of the corporate and character backstories. And then finally, O'Bannon and Shussett were invited back for a final rewrite, which molded the script into what it is today. The film's director, Ridley Scott, fell in love with Geiger's concept art for the Dune movie and commissioned him to create the titular alien and several sets for the film.
Yeah, and I mean, of all the well-judged decisions made for this film, I think that one has to be right at the top, right?
Absolutely.
Good. Okay, so with that little primer done, let's cut open the groundbreaking classic that is Alien. After investigating a mysterious transmission of unknown origin, the crew of a commercial spacecraft encounters a deadly life form.
Yes. Before we get cracking on the script, it's worth pointing out that the O'Bannon draft opens with a brief page of character introductions and a cool hand drawn stellar map of the alien universe. On the character introduction page, it's specifically noted that the crew are unisex and the genders are interchangeable. I mean, despite using male pronouns in the script itself, just for simplicity's sake.
Yeah, important little note there, I feel.
Hmm.
So we open on the black void of space, moving through the darkness as the title is gradually superimposed on the screen. Finally, we fall upon a titanic object drifting through the blackness of space, and a handy superimposition informs us that this is commercial towing vehicle the Nostromo, crew 7, cargo, refinery processing 20 million tons of mineral ore, course returning to Earth.
Nice. In the O'Bannon draft, the ship is known as the Snark. Interestingly, the name Nostromo comes from a 1904 novel by Joseph Conrad titled Nostromo, A Tale of the Seaboard.
From the black of space, we move inside the ship through seemingly abandoned corridors and empty rooms filled with static equipment and no immediate signs of life.
I mean, straight off the bat, the difference in these two scripts is night and day. The O'Bannon draft is packed with descriptive action lines, whereas the Hill draft is abrupt and distinct. I mean, Hill himself even likened it to writing a screenplay composed solely of haiku. I mean, let me share with you the opening scene from both scripts, just so that you can kind of get a feel for the differences yourselves.
Fade in. Extreme close ups of flickering instrument panels. Readouts and digital displays pulse eerily with the technology of the distant future. Wherever we are, it seems to be chill, dark, and sterile. Electronic machinery chuckles softly to itself. Abruptly, we hear a beeping signal, and the machinery begins to awaken. Circuits close, lights blink on. Camera angles gradually widen, revealing more and more of the machinery, banks of panels, fluttering gauges, until we reveal. So that was the O'Bannon draft, and now the Hill draft. Fade in, sometime in the future. Interior, engine room 1, empty, cavernous. Yeah, so it's a totally different approach, isn't it?
Yeah, just a little.
Yeah, it's night and day. So, back in the film, one of the computer screens flicks to life, and slowly the colossal ship begins to stir. The lights flicker on, and the hum of machinery starts to break the eerie silence. We move through the ship and into the cryosleep chamber, where the crew are beginning to wake from their long induced slumber. And it's here we first meet the crew.
Indeed, we do. Roby, Standard, Faust, Broussard, Hunter, Cleves, and Melconis.
Hold the phone, Lee. What's that all about?
In the O'Bannon draft, our beloved crew are all male, though specifically stated to be of interchangeable gender, don't forget, and are known by a completely different and far clunkier set of monikers.
Yeah. It was fun that I thought. Okay, so before we carry on, I just want to just shout out the Jerry Goldsmith score in Alien because it's wonderful. It's so subtle and is a massive reason I think why this film creates such tension, you know?
It's beautiful, isn't it?
Anyway,
It's
yeah,
beautiful.
amazing. So that shout out done. On screen, as in the Hill Draft, our crew consists of Dallas, Kane, Ash, Lambert, Brett, Parker, and last but by no means least, Ripley.
Both drafts do feature the cat, though.
Of course, yes, we do need a little animal action on a jaunt like this, I think. So, just briefly, if you will, Lee, how do these two sets of characters correlate to one another?
Okay, so as far as I can make out, Roby became Ripley, whose gender was changed and who would ultimately take center stage as the film's protagonist. Standard evolved into Dallas, the ship's captain. Broussard, the unfortunate host of the alien embryo, was reworked as Kane. The Hill Draft also introduced entirely new elements, most notably the character of Ash, the science officer, who is later revealed to be an android acting under secret corporate orders. Lambert, the emotional and often panicked navigator, may have been loosely inspired by Faust or Malconis, while the ship's engineer Parker and his laid back sidekick Brett were likely developed from the remaining placeholders such as Hunter and Cleves, though their exact lineage is a lot less clear, I think.
Yeah, fascinating to see the early renditions of these characters, isn't it? So, back to the film, and our crew enjoy some long overdue breakfast before Dallas is called away for a private audience with the ship's computer, Mother.
I love the contrast between the mother interface. The whole room is like clean and bright and sterile, and like the rest of the ship that the crew inhabit is just dark and grimy and broken down. It's just brilliant contrast. I mean, in the O'Bannon draft, the crew skip brekkie and head straight from cryo to their stations, believing that they are about to dock back on Earth, or Earth, IRTH, as it's referred to in this particular draft.
So while Dallas checks in with Mother, the rest of the crew take their posts and quickly ascertain that they are nowhere near Earth. In fact, they are still light years away. The crew reconvenes at the breakfast table where Dallas informs them that Mother has intercepted a transmission of unknown origin, and if they want to get paid, they are contractually obliged to check it out. Now, it's worth mentioning for context, there are some seemingly ongoing grumbles from Brett and Parker about the payment of shares.
Yeah. There's a cool little character beat of Parker just shooing a compliant Ash out of his seat. You kind of get the impression that Parker has tried throwing his weight around with all of the crew, but with, little success. And in both versions of the script, the crew listen to the distress beacon. In the O'Bannon draft, it is a strange alien language. In the Hill draft, it's an ungodly shrieking sound. So check it out.
Interior, bridge. Dallas, Kane, Ripley, and Ash stand around the illuminated map table. Lambert sits at the radio directional console. Dallas. Okay, let's hear it. Nods at Lambert. She switches on the audio system. Hissing. Static. Then an ungodly sound. 8 seconds worth. Kane. Good God. Static. Lambert switches off the loudspeakers. Ripley. What the hell is it? It doesn't sound like any radio signal I've ever heard. Lambert. Maybe it's a voice. Disturbing moment. Dallas. We'll know soon. Interesting. So, any thoughts on why this was removed from the film?
I'd wager mainly to maintain the momentum of the film. I mean, plus that god awful shrieking sound would have greatly insinuated the danger to come.
Okay, so how do you know what it sounds like if it's not in the film?
Okay, interesting factoid. The sample sound that was the distress call was repurposed for the Aliens trailer. So most of us have probably heard it at some point without even realizing it.
Okay, I didn't know that. Yeah, that noise is so eerie,
Hmm.
so influential as well, right? That's amazing. Okay, so back on screen, and the Nostromo separates from the massive refinery it's been towing in order to make an unscheduled landing on the small planet from which the signal has originated. It's a bumpy ride, but the landing goes off with nary a hitch until they touch down on the planet and there's an explosion in the cockpit. The crew quickly deal with this, but it seems the ship is a little dinged up and is in need of some repairs, which, according to Brett and Parker, down in the ship's bowels, will take a good 17 to 25 hours.
I love the way Ripley is instantly wary of their bullshit and just heads down to check for herself.
Yeah. She's the goat for a reason, Lee.
True that.
Also, just to say, I adore the sound design in this film. I mean, the moment the ship powers down, we hear this horrific kind of gale force winds, that are tearing across the planet. And I mean, inhospitable seems a vast understatement.
It kind of reminds me a little bit of The Thing, and like where you've always got that kind of harsh environmental sound in the background when there's
Yeah.
nothing happening. It's just brilliant, brilliant for setting the tone of the film. Interestingly, in the O'Bannon draft, it is here at this point that the main titles roll. So check this out.
Exterior, ship, night. Main title sequence. The floodlights on the Snark fight a losing battle against the darkness and the storm. Main theme music begins, extremely ominous. The title appears, Alien. Run titles. Gradually, the screen begins to lighten as the sun rises. The silhouette of the Snark becomes visible, like some strange insect crouching motionless on the barren plain. The flood shut off. Dense clouds of impenetrable dust shriek and moan, obscuring everything and reducing the sunlight to a dull orange. End main titles. Yeah, so again, I mean, this highlights the difference in literary style between the two drafts nicely. I think it's really illustrative, I think. So back to the film, and Ash runs a scan of the planet's atmosphere. Now, in short, it's harsh, unforgiving, and very cold, much like your feedback, Lee.
Oh, but
Yeah, just joking, just joking. So they figure that the signal's point of origin is only 2 kilometers away. And with the sun rising in 20 minutes, they're going to take a wander over there, Lee, and have a little route around, I think. Probably a good idea. Kane
Oh yeah.
volunteers to go along with Dallas, who orders a less than thrilled Lambert to join them.
In both versions of the script, it is made clear that it is the atmospheric dust which has played havoc with the ship's systems, flooding the engines, etc. And there's also a great little character beat of Ash looking sheepishly around before briefly sprinting on the spot. Now, this strange little quirk has been the subject of many an internet discussion. Is it something to do with Ash's android nature or a moment of improvisation from Ian Holm?
Yeah. I mean, I love this little moment. I mean, I'm a bit of a nerd about these things, Lee. So, Peter Jackson, when he was working with Ian Holm on the Lord of the Rings film, said that Holm would give a slightly different performance, on each take. So this could well be that, this is something that was improvised. And yeah, I think it just adds to the general feeling that there's something slightly off about Ash. I think it's
Yeah.
absolutely great. So back on screen, and our three intrepid explorers head out through the airlock into the screaming gale.
In both drafts of the script, there is talk of weapons and arming themselves before venturing out onto the planet's hostile surface.
Now, the planet's surface proves to be every bit as hostile as the scans would have us believe, as our brave trio head out into the howling winds and cloying dust. Meanwhile, Ripley clashes with Parker and Brett about their pay as they drag their feet with the ship's repairs. Eventually, the weather seems to calm somewhat as the sun rises, and we get our first look at the now iconic alien spacecraft.
In the O'Bannon draft, the ship is described a little differently to what we're used to. I'll read it for you. As we watch, the dust clears slightly, revealing a grotesque ship rising from the sand like some gigantic toadstool. It is clearly of non human manufacture.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? Yeah. So just jumping off track a little again here, Lee. Sorry about this, but some of the shots of this primordial planetscape are just beautiful in the film, aren't they?
Absolutely, man. I mean, I totally agree. I was struck when rewatching this just how beautiful this film is. I mean, it still holds up today in a way that everything just feels authentic, from the special effects shots to the retro futuristic aesthetic, the sets. It really is a work of art.
Yeah, man. I mean, credit to sort of Ridley Scott and, Derek Van Lint was the cinematographer on Alien.
Mm.
And obviously, Geiger and Michael Seymour was the production designer. And Ian Whitaker was the art director. So credit to them all. I mean, I think, the film definitely is a work of art is definitely a valid term for this film.
Yeah, no arguments from me there, mate.
Okay, so back on screen, and the explorers make their way inside the colossal ship.
In the O'Bannon draft, the explorers wield handheld scanning devices called data sticks to guide them through the ship. I point this out because the script then features a full page illustration of said data stick, which is really cool just to see on the page. And let's talk about the ship for a moment. I mean, and just the groundbreaking biomechanical design that gives the ship, or the derelict as it's often known, a genuinely alien appearance. I mean, Geiger hand built the ship himself using a mixture of organic and mechanical textures inspired by his painting Necronom 4, which also inspired the iconic Xenomorph design. And it's no wonder that the Swiss artist deservedly received an Oscar for his groundbreaking work on this film.
Yeah, absolutely. And speaking of iconic designs, Lee, we move straight from one to another as the explorers discover the seemingly mummified corpse of a gigantic alien humanoid, seemingly the ship's pilot.
Often referred to as the Space Jockey, another of Geiger's legendary designs that sparked countless discussions and theories, at least until we learned it was just a giant albino humanoid in a spacesuit.
Oh dear. So I'm sensing a little disapproval from you here, Lee.
Oh man, I mean, don't get me wrong. I like Prometheus. It's a good film, but it's shit all over the mystique and legacy of the Alien franchise in a way that will never be undone. I wish I could erase it and Covenant from my mind, and I'll die on that hill, brother.
Yeah, so I mean, I've heard this from you before, Lee, and I would say, in almost all of the horror films we've watched for this podcast, they all feature some kind of mystique busting reveal. So it kind of intrigues me, why this seems to be so offensive to you.
The mystique of the original film was so perfect, so terrifying. I mean, think about it, a fossilized alien pilot, a ship maybe millions of years old, hostile alien life form, the perfect organism from somewhere in the deepest, darkest, coldest reaches of space that even this hyper advanced spacefaring species could not adequately contain. I mean, what kind of ungodly hell could spawn such a horror? How inhospitable must the outer dark be to have produced such a terrible, evil creature? And then, oh no, never mind. It was actually us somehow, or more specifically, a camp android with a mummy fetish who created these aliens and somehow got them aboard an alien ship identical but not the same as another alien ship, which he stole from a super advanced alien race who also created us and Jesus. I mean, you talk about most horror movies having a mystique busting appeal. Yeah, that's true, but that's usually part of the same movie. I mean, this is kind of like retconning the additional Predator movie so that it wasn't an alien hunter at all, but I don't know, an extreme plastic surgery obsessed survival nut called Dave who went native and decided to live in the jungle and who also happened to be a genius who invented state-of-the-art weaponry with a doctorate on nuclear fission and breathe.
Man, we need to do a Predator episode, I think.
Yeah, we totally do. Absolutely. I mean, okay, rant aside, uh, a couple of interesting facts about the space jockey, which I'm sure you'll already know, but might prove of interest to our listeners. The jockey itself was a practical effect, basically a giant sculpture created by Geiger to a 1.1 scale, meaning the piece was over 20 feet tall. And to make the effect even more impressive, Scott used his sons, Jake and Luke Scott, for a lot of the wide shots to make the dead creature even more impressive. Also of interest, the space jockey is not present in the Hill version of the script, but a version of it can be found in the earlier O'Bannon draft, so check it out here.
Interior control room of alien ship. This chamber is totally dark as Broussard arrives at the top of the hull. Standard stands with his flashlight/camera data stick tracing a beam through the hanging dust. Broussard unclips himself from the climbing wire, then raises his own light. At that moment, Melcanis arrives at the top of the hull. Their lights scan the room. The beams are clearly visible as columns of light in the floating dust. They reveal heavy, odd shapes. Broussard stumbles over something. He shines his light down on it. It is a large, glossy urn, brown in colour with peculiar markings. Broussard stands it upright. It has a round opening on the top and is empty. Suddenly, Melcanis lets out a grunt of shock. Their lights have illuminated something unspeakably grotesque, a huge alien skeleton seated in the control chair. They approach the skeleton, their lights trained on it. It is a grotesque thing, bearing no resemblance to the human form. Melcanis. Holy Christ. Yeah, so it's interesting to see the glossy urn in there, isn't it? Something they pick up again in Lee's favourite movies, Prometheus and Alien Covenant.
I just want to go on record. I don't hate Prometheus and Alien Covenant. I just hate the lore that they've retconned into the franchise.
You hate them.
Anyway, yeah. Plus, I mean, it seems like they're referring to the eggs, I guess, because they are kind of urn-shaped, as Kane later remarks that the hold is full of them, just like the one up top. In the O'Bannon draft, the crew return safely to their ship, and later, when the sun rises and the dust storm clears, they spot a vast pyramid towering from the planet's surface, which is, again, accompanied by a really cool full-page illustration of said pyramid.
Yeah. Also, a little tidbit, Geiger was pretty unhappy with the space jockey, so I'm led to believe, as it was unfinished and needed more paint at the time of filming. So there we go. So back to the film, and a closer inspection of the dead pilot shows that it was seemingly killed by some kind of internal explosion, Lee. Kane locates a suspicious hole in the floor of the chamber, and they decide to investigate. Meanwhile, back aboard the ship, Ripley has deciphered part of the alien signal and tells Ash that it looks more like a warning than an SOS. Ash quickly shoots down her idea of heading out to warn the expedition, as by the time she gets there, they'd already know if it was a warning or not.
Yeah, there's an additional little moment in the Hill draft that drops hints at Ash's true allegiance. Check it out.
Ripley, I still think we should go after them. Ash, voiceover. What's the point? In the time it takes to get there, they'll know if it's a warning. Ripley looks steadily at Ash on the monitor. His screen, not visible to her, shows a blow-up of a helmeted, skeletal head, not human.
In the Hill draft, there is no dead alien or control room. Instead, they simply discover a hole and head straight down into it.
Yeah. So Kane descends into the hole, attached to an automatic winch. As he is lowered into the bowels of the ship, we get an idea of its vast size and scale. He finds himself in what appears to be a cargo hold, the ground of which is scattered with hundreds, if not thousands, of large, leathery pods, which he speculates might be eggs of some kind. Kane shines his light on one of the eggs to reveal its translucent nature and something decidedly alien moving within. Great little shot of the water droplets running upwards too here, Lee. Don't know if you spotted that.
I did, yeah.
The top of the egg peels open, and in a moment of monumentally poor decision making, Kane leans over to take a closer look. And fucking whamly, the creature springs to the attack, melting through the faceplate of his helmet and firmly attaching itself to his face. Oh my god. So this, Lee, is a classic jump scare, and it clocks in at around 34 minutes and 30 seconds.
Indeed. And lo and behold, we are introduced to a cinematic icon, the facehugger. Now, before we go any further, I don't know if you recall our impromptu discussion on facehuggers and their genders way back in season one's babysitter episode.
Yeah, I do vaguely recall us touching on the subject of whether or not facehuggers have dicks.
That is the one, yes. Well, the quandary has been with me ever since, so I did a little research on the facehugger and its ecology.
Whoa, well, I do love a deep dive, Lee.
Okay, buckle in, here we go. So, as far as I've been able to ascertain, facehuggers are genderless. I mean, the main argument for this is that there are no variations among them, with the exception of the royal facehugger, which we'll get to that in a bit. So, what I mean by this is that all facehuggers appear the same, and they show no need for male-female interaction to reproduce. They are one and done, if you like, which lends to them being genderless or hermaphroditic. If they were, for example, female, then the eggs or embryos that they laid inside their prey would need to be fertilized in host, which clearly doesn't happen. So next up is the question, do the facehuggers insert eggs or embryos? The answer, embryos. This is widely confirmed from multiple sources, although Alien Romulus does pose that perhaps it is the black goo that is inserted into the host. So why not an egg? Well, eggs need to incubate, and as we discussed a moment ago, they need to be fertilized. Therefore, the facehugger implants an alien embryo into the host body. The embryo develops rapidly, absorbing DNA and genetic traits from its host. thus leading to the multiple variations we've seen across the franchise, i.e., the drone, the runner, the pred alien, and the neomorph. So, our final question posed: can the facehugger use a different orifice for implantation? And oh my God, was this a rabbit hole to go down? I do not recommend it to anybody. There are no concrete answers to this. I mean, the oral cavity seems to be the preferred method and the one that the facehugger is ergonomically best designed to execute via its biology, i.e., the tail snares the throat, the legs are wrapped around the cranium, plus its ability to effectively breathe for its host. A different entry point would pose several challenges, including but not limited to grip, access to suitable internal organs, and most of all, how to subdue the host long enough for a successful implantation. But just because we haven't seen it yet doesn't mean
Hmm.
it can't happen. And as a side note, there is some really fucked up fan fiction out there that explores this in greater detail, should the desire take you, which I highly recommend you do not investigate further.
Okay, that's a rabbit hole I'm not going down, Lee.
Oh,
So you
yeah.
mentioned a royal facehugger. So tell the listeners a little bit more about that.
Okay, so also known as the Prince Andrew, the royal facehugger is considered semi-canon as it appears in the assembly cut of Alien 3 and resembles a larger, more robust facehugger. Its purpose is to implant a host with a special embryo that will hatch into a juvenile alien queen. So, in conclusion, facehuggers do not, in fact, have dicks.
Hmm. Today I learned.
The more you know, the more you grow. Now, check out this iconic scene as written in the Hill draft.
Viscera and mandible now visible, the interior surface spongy and irregular. Kane shines the light inside. With shocking violence, a small creature smashes outward, fixes itself to his mask, sizzling sound. The creature melts through the mask, attaches itself to Kane's face. Kane tears at the thing with his hands. His mouth forced open, he falls backward.
In the Hill draft, there is an unfilmed scene of Dallas and Lambert winching Kane out of the hole before dragging him back to the ship. And this is also present in the O'Bannon draft, although the crew are exploring the abandoned pyramid, and the facehugger is described as an octopus like thing. There's even another cool full page illustration depicting the creature.
Yeah, now somehow Dallas and Lambert are able to drag an unresponsive Kane back to the ship, where, despite the captain's orders, Ripley refuses to open the airlock until 24-hour quarantine procedures have been followed.
It's a fantastic character beat from Ripley here. I mean, yes, she comes across as something as a cold-hearted bitch, but she is so right. If they'd only listened to her, most of the crew would probably still be alive, and the alien would have never made its way onto the ship. A similar scene occurs in the O'Bannon draft, where Roby, our proto Ripley, initially refuses to break quarantine before ultimately relenting.
Yeah, and unfortunately for Ripley and the rest of the crew, Ash ignores her orders and opens the airlock manually.
Yeah. End of Act 1, do you think?
Yeah, this is where I had it, dude. Yep.
Cool.
So, with all the crew back on board, for better or worse, Ash and Dallas work on a comatose Kane in the medbay, cutting away the remains of his helmet to reveal the facehugger Lee in all of its hideous, wondrous glory. It's a definite scare, and it clocks in at 36 minutes and 45 seconds. Now, Dallas makes the decision to try to cut the creature off his friend, but the first incision causes a stream of concentrated acidic blood to spray on the floor where it starts to eat through the deck. Fearful it may eat right through the hull, Dallas leads the others on a wild chase as they follow the dripping acid until it finally fizzles out.
Yeah, there's a really great action line in the Hill draft that I just want to take a moment with. Check it out.
Interior, passageway B deck. Dallas wrenches an emergency lamp from the socket, hurls himself down a companionway. The others follow. So, what was it, Lee, about this little line that interests you so much?
Okay, it's just really well written and highlights just how important word choice is when writing a screenplay. I mean, for example, Dallas wrenches an emergency lamp from a socket. Could have just been Dallas grabs a lamp or Dallas takes a lamp, but the word wrenches puts an image in our head of him literally tearing it off the wall in his haste. Also, the next line hurls himself down a companionway. I mean, they could have written something stale like he runs down a companionway, or the whole thing could have been condensed into something like Dallas grabs a lamp and hurries down a companionway. And the way the two lines follow on from one another is also interesting. There's no identifier like his name or pronoun. The line just leaps straight into action, just keeping the reader in the moment and in the haste of the scene.
Yeah, I think you're right. The choice of words here really does evoke some form of desperation, you know? I think there's really great lines for actors and directors to latch onto as well. The formatting, I think, is also quite propulsive.
Hmm.
So it's one sort of short, singular sentence after another, each on its own kind of separate line on the page. I think it's really great stuff. Okay, so with the ship's hull mercifully still intact, we check in with Parker and Brett as they continue the multitude of repairs. Then we are back to Kane, alone in the medbay with the facehugger still firmly cuddling his face. Ash, meanwhile, is studying some kind of X ray or ultrasound, which quite clearly shows some kind of fetal embryo. Ripley takes advantage of the moment to chew Ash out for disobeying her order and breaking quarantine procedures, something the science officer is clearly not too bothered about, Lee.
Yeah, it's a great little exchange between the two. I mean, Ripley is clearly pissed, but it's all played through this lovely sort of passive aggressive lens. Both drafts of the script also mention a black stain on the scans around Kane's lungs, effectively obscuring whatever may be lurking within.
Yeah. So later, after a summons from Ash, Dallas and Ripley discover the parasite has detached itself from Kane and is presently missing. The three of them enter the medbay and begin a nervous search for the creature. It's wonderfully tense and clocks in at 46 minutes and 45 seconds. Dallas knocks over a medical tray for a cheap but effective jump scare at 47 minutes and 45 seconds. Finally, somebody thinks to close the door behind them to prevent any possible escape by the creature.
I mean, it could easily have escaped here if it were able. I can understand neither Ripley or Dallas wanting to seal themselves in with the creature, which is probably why it's Ash that ends up closing the door.
Ultimately, it's Ripley who discovers the facehugger's whereabouts as it drops onto her from an alcove above. Thankfully, the thing seems to be quite dead. This final little jump scare at 48 minutes and 35 seconds caps off a very tense scene. Ash is keen to examine the creature and insists they take it back to Earth with them, to which Dallas reluctantly agrees, much to Ripley's frustration.
And I swear the first four Alien films would be so uneventful if people just listened to Ripley. A couple of nice character beats for Dallas and Ash here. I mean, Dallas unthinkingly shields Ripley with his body, and Ash is almost giddy with excitement at the thought of analyzing the perished parasite. In the O'Bannon draft, the parasite starts to break down, and the crew rush to get it off the ship before it compromises the hull. Check it out.
Suddenly, it starts to fall apart in the flyers. Standard. Quick, it's decomposing. Give me something to grab it with. It begins to smoke and bubble. Roby grabs a long pair of tongs from the wall and thrusts them at Standard, who throws down the pliers, snatches the tongs, and seizes the thing in the tongs. It is smouldering and dripping acid on the floor. Standard continued, Christ, let's get it out of here. Carrying the thing, he heads for the door. Interior, corridors in ship. The men run down the passageway, Standard carrying the dripping thing in the tongs. It leaves little smoking droplets on the floor. Interior, corridor outside airlock. They come running up to the airlock. Roby stabs the button and the inner doors slide open. By the time Standard is in the lock, Roby is already on the intercom. Roby shouts into intercom, For Christ's sake, open the main lock! Interior, airlock, day. Roby stumbles in as the inner door closes, and with a heavy whine, the thick surface door rumbles open. Orange sunlight billows in, followed by the inevitable dust. Standard hurls the carcass out, tongs and all. Exterior, base of ship, day. The parasite hits the ground and begins to sink into the dust, smouldering and fuming. Interior, airlock, day. The outer door rolls shut. So back to the film now, and Ripley confronts Dallas, saying she doesn't trust Ash, but the captain has had just about enough and orders the ship to take off to redock with the refinery. Just to say, Lee, I love how pragmatic Tom Skerritt is, and how he plays Dallas here throughout the film. I think it's just such a great performance. It's such great casting.
Hmm. Another cool character beat that isn't in the script is when Dallas is trying to brush Ripley off and ignores her, she seals the door ahead of him, cutting him off so he has to acknowledge her concerns.
Yeah, nobody ignores Ellen Ripley.
As we said, do so at your peril.
Absolutely. So, with the refinery back in tow and the planet safely behind them, it looks like things may just be looking up for our intrepid space truckers.
Good one.
Yeah, come on, Stuart Gordon, ledge. So the crew enjoy a little downtime until Ash informs them that there's been a change in Kane's condition. Looks like he's awakely. He seems to be in good spirits, if a little sore, says he's starving, and requests a last meal before going back into cryosleep. And the rest of the crew are keen to oblige.
Oh, drum roll. Oh, Lord, it's a coming.
Oh, it's totally coming, isn't it? So the crew enjoy a pre-freeze meal. Everyone's in good spirits.
Now, note the seating positions here. It's quite interesting. From the right, we have Lambert, Dallas, Kane, and Parker. They all sit closely together. Fans have long speculated that Lambert and Dallas may have been involved in a physical relationship of some kind. Then we have Brett and Ripley. Brett is next to his platonic life partner, Parker, and Ripley is just slightly removed from the rest of the crew. She's not the most social, but she obviously considers herself part of the crew. And then by himself is Ash, directly opposite Kane and watching him like a hawk the whole time. He either knows or strongly suspects that something is coming.
Yeah, I mean, it's subtle, but Ash is totally locked in on Kane here, isn't he? And he doesn't have long to wait as Kane grows increasingly uncomfortable and alarmed, and something is clearly wrong.
Understatement.
Understatement indeed, as poor Kane is struck with an agonized fit, and the others are forced to hold him down as his body convulses violently. A gout of blood sprays from his chest, momentarily stunning the others before, and I think everybody listening now knows what's coming. A small snake like creature bursts from Kane's chest, showering the group with blood. There's a moment of stunned silence as the creature takes in its surroundings, and the crew absorb what's just happened. Parker is the first to react as he moves to attack the creature, but Ash stops him.
Of course he does, the sneaky bastard.
Suddenly, the creature explodes into movement and flees into the bowels of the ship. And, it is the scarily, and it all kicks
Mm.
off around 55 minutes and 20 seconds. So, you've spoken a lot about holy shit scenes, and, this one in particular. Would you just remind us of the idea and why you're so enamored, and rightly so, with this one?
Okay, so like the holy shit scene is basically like the scene in a movie. It's basically a moment that sells the entire movie, and it's a staple in horror, especially. It's where you create a scene that is so iconic that people will talk about it in relation to the movie, and it's incredibly hard to pull off. I mean, for example, if I say Psycho, you say
Shower scene?
bang. Aliens,
Get away from her,
you
you
bitch.
bitch!
Yes. Nice. The Descent.
The night vision camera.
Boom. The Mist.
I haven't seen it.
Oh man.
Yeah, but I heard the ending was brutal.
Yes, yes, exactly. That scene is so potent that it almost exists apart from the movie, and that's the power of the holy shit scene. Word of mouth, iconic movie moments that transcend into pop culture. And if you can craft one for your movie or your script, it's going to be like strapping a rocket to it. So let's take a closer look at this one in particular and compare how it was written in both drafts. First, the O'Bannon draft.
The others stare at him in alarm. Another groan is torn from his lips. He clutches the edge of the table with his hands, his knuckles whitening. Standard. Breathe deeply. Broussard screaming, "Oh God, it hurts so bad!" Roby. "What, Dell? What?" Broussard's face is screwed up into a mask of agony, and he's trembling violently from head to foot. Broussard. Incoherent shriek. "Oh my God!" A red smear of blood blossoms on the chest of Broussard's tunic. Their eyes are all riveted to Broussard's chest as the fabric of his tunic is ripped open and a horrible, nasty little head the size of a man's fist pushes out. Everybody screams and leaps back from the table. The cat spits and bolts. The disgusting little head lunges, comes spurting out of Broussard's chest, trailing a thick, worm-like tail, splattering fluids and blood, lands in the middle of the dishes and food on the table, and scurries away while the men are stampeding for safe ground. When they finally regain control of themselves, it has escaped. Broussard lies slumped in his chair, a huge hole in his chest spouting blood. The dishes are scattered, and the food is covered with blood and slime.
Nice. Okay, now check out the hill draft.
Kane screams. Kane. Oh God, it hurts so bad. It hurts, it hurts. Stands up. Ooh! Brett, what is it? What hurts? Kane's face screws into a mask of agony. He falls back into his chair. Kane. Oh my God! A red stain. Then a smear of blood blossoms on his chest. The fabric of his shirt is ripped open. A small head the size of a man's fist pushes out. The crew shout in panic, leap back from the table. The cat spits, bolts away. The tiny head lunges forward, comes spurting out of Kane's chest, trailing a thick body, splatters fluids and blood in its wake, lands in the middle of the dishes and food, wriggles away while the crew scatters. Then the alien being disappears from sight. Kane lies slumped in his chair, very dead. A huge hole in his chest. The dishes are scattered, food covered with blood. Yeah, so there's a lot in there, isn't there?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this scene, apart from the character names, remains largely unchanged. The Hill Draft adapts it into its kind of haiku-esque format, but the content is pretty much the same. And we do have, and we haven't had one of these for a while, a script sin of a deliberately drawn-out word in "Oh my god."
That's a drawn out word match ever I saw one, Lee. And it's lifted, letter for letter from both versions of the script. So, yeah, it's interesting, isn't it?
Mm.
Anyway, more tidbits.
Oh, go on then. Yeah, please.
So when the chest burster pushes its way through Kane's chest, the rest of the cast, they had a sort of vague sense of what was coming. But, the sheer amount of blood that was going to be sprayed over them was not, I don't think was, fully relayed to them in full detail. I think Ridley Scott did this on purpose to get a genuine reaction from them. And it worked too, because, poor Veronica Cartwright just takes a face full of blood and like screams her lungs out. So, I mean, it's possibly a bit naughty, but it's really effective. Also, they ran compressed air through the alien's, the baby alien's tail to make it sort of whip around in the way that it does as it runs off the table. So you've got to love those practical effects, Lee. I
Definitely.
appreciate the indulgence.
Anytime, brother.
Okay, so back on screen. And after a brief hunt for the elusive alien turns up nothing, the crew jettison poor Kane's body out of the airlock.
It always makes me chuckle the way his body is just kind of full on yeeted out into outer space like it's been shot out of a cannon.
Show some respect, Lee. A man just died. So the crew of the Nostromo, armed with a shock prod and net, split into two teams in order to better search the ship. The plan is to catch the alien and blast it out of an airlock.
Decent enough plan, I suppose. In both versions of the script, it's made explicitly clear that the crew are on a pretty strict timer. They only have enough air and food to stay out of cryosleep for a week. If they haven't captured and expelled the creature by then, they'll have to enter cryosleep anyway and risk being sitting ducks for the creature to prey on, which is not an appealing option.
Yeah, indeed.
Now, in the Hill Draft, we also get a scene of Ripley and Dallas relieving some stress. Check it out.
Interior, Narcissus. Dallas seated in the shuttlecraft, staring at the myriad lights of outer space. Ripley climbs beside him. Ripley, I thought I'd find you here. Dallas continues to stare. Dallas, are the nets finished? Pause. Ripley, we've got an hour. Look, I need some relief. Dallas, why did you wait until now? Ripley leans forward. Ripley, let me tell you something. You keep staring out of there long enough, they'll be peeling you off the wall. Ripley begins taking off her boots. Dallas, we're the new pioneers, Ripley. We even get to have our own special diseases. Ripley, I'm tired of talking. She rises and removes her upper garments. Dallas, you waited too long. Ripley, give it a try anyway. Clothing removed, his arms move around her. So back on screen, Ripley, Parker, and Brett use Ash's primitive motion tracker to home in on something. Unfortunately, it's just Jones the cat. And to the other's frustration, Brett allows the animal to escape. So clumsy. Realizing that they could just wind up chasing the cat around the ship, Brett heads off to retrieve the feisty feline while Parker and Ripley continue their search.
Yeah, this is largely as written in the Hill draft. I mean, in the O'Bannon draft, after releasing the cat, the other search team trapped the juvenile alien in a food storage room, and justifiably not wanting to open the door, they pump poison gas into it, only to find that the creature has escaped into the air vents, and now the majority of their food is spoiled.
Meanwhile, poor Brett searches for Jonesy, almost catching him at one point before the kitty slips away. He does find what appears to be the malted skin of our annoying alien, though. Warily, he follows the cat into the next room.
Ah, yes, the wet chain room.
Yes, every ship needs a wet chain room, Lee. Space Travel 101.
Well, according to the Hill draft, we are currently in undercarriage room sea level.
Love it. So Brett locates the cat, but just as he's coaxing it from its hiding place, the alien, now over 7 feet tall, lowers itself to the ground behind him and attacks. And it's our first real look at Geiger's design made flesh, and it's still every bit as impressive today as it was back then.
Absolutely.
So this delightful reveal clocks in at 1 hour, 7 minutes, and 30 seconds. Now, the stunned crew have reconvened somewhere safe as Ripley and Parker relay what happened to Brett. A decision is made to rig some flamethrowers and try to drive it through the air shaft into the main airlock in order to blast it into outer space. The only question is, who will go? Ripley volunteers immediately, but is overruled by Dallas.
Another great character beat from Ripley, which only serves to further endear us to her. I mean, this scene plays out mostly as written in the Hill draft, although there is no heroic volunteering from Ripley on the page. In the O'Bannon draft, the survivors draw lots to determine who must go, which is definitely lacking in the heroism department, I think.
Yeah, a little bit, isn't it? I really actually love how Dallas takes responsibility in the Hill draft. It really shows his
Mm.
colours here, I think. Now, poor Dallas moves cautiously through the vents, but let's be honest, it's like a lamb to the slaughter. It's an incredibly tense sequence, which culminates in one of my favourite shots in the whole film. And our brave captain is taken by the alien at 1 hour, 15 minutes, and 40 seconds.
Things play out very slightly different in the Hill draft, so check it out.
Interior, air shaft, double tiered passageway. Dallas sitting, his feet still dangling in the dark beneath the catwalk. Dallas, it may be interference. I'll push on ahead. Dallas begins to rise. From below, a gentle movement towards the hanging feet. A hand reaches up, misses his leg as Dallas moves ahead. Further on, Dallas. Lambert, am I coming in any clearer? Lambert, voiceover. It's clear all right, but I'm still getting two signals. Frightening pause. I'm not sure which one's which. Dallas stops, turns around, looks back down through the catwalk, lowers the nose of the flamethrower, his fingers on the trigger. From behind him, the hand reaches up. The alien is the front signal. Interior, airlock, vestibule. Ripley bends forward, hears the sound of the struggle, and Dallas's scream. She cries out. So rather than coming from behind in a jump scare, the alien is lurking beneath him in this version. Okay, so tell us about the O'Bannon draft, Lee.
But in the O'Bannon draft, don't forget at this point, everyone still believes the alien to be just a little larger than the chest burster, as nobody else has been killed by it at this point. Now, that is all about to change, however, so check out that version of the airlock scene.
Interior, airshaft. Hunter, good. He readies the flamethrower. Interior, climate control room. Standard. Okay, get ready. He and Roby heft their respective ends of the net, crouch to catch the small creature when it darts out. Melkonis picks up his electric prod. Standard continued. Open the vent, Sandy. Melkonis reaches over and throws the switch. The metal gate drops down, opening up the shaft. A 6-foot monstrosity stands in the opening, ghastly beyond imagination, squamous, covered with tentacles. It hops down like an oversized bird and grabs Melkonis, in razor sharp tentacles. Melcanis lets out a horrible shriek, and the thing grabs his head in one claw and twists it off like a man pulling the head off a chicken, then throws it to the floor with an audible clunk. Clutching Melcanis's body tightly against itself, it turns and bounds down the hall. Melcanis's headless body is still kicking and struggling as the monster leaps headfirst into another air shaft. Standard and Roby are left standing in shock. After a moment, Hunter climbs out of the shaft. Hunter, what happened? Where is it? Yeah, so it's fascinating to see the different iterations of what the alien would have looked like. I mean, the Hill draft, barely describes it at all.
Mm.
And squamous?
I had to Google this. Squamous means something is covered in scales.
Okay, interesting.
So if you've never seen O'Bannon's visualization of the alien, it's definitely worth a Google search.
Does it hold up to Giga's vision?
Oh God, no! It's laughably terrible in comparison. But to be fair, it is up against the best monster design in the history of the world ever. But it is interesting to see what could have been.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Okay, so the crew mourn Dallas's loss, and it's made crystal clear Ripley is in command now, and she is quick to stress her disapproval of Ash and his seemingly lackluster results. She leaves to interrogate Mother.
In the Hill Draft, we have a scene that was only partially filmed and not included in the film itself. It runs for about 5 pages, so I'll summarize it for you here. So while refueling the flamethrower, Parker spots the alien lurking near the airlock. So he patches into Ripley on comms and she uses the airlock lights to lure it inside. And just as she is about to blow it into space, the alarm sounds and the alien flees, damaging its arm and smashing into Parker as it escapes. Ripley hurries to Parker's aid, and the two find themselves trapped as the outer airlock opens and the inner door is wedged open by a fallen methane tank. And ultimately, Ripley is able to free the tank and save them both, but not before the depressurization causes nose and ear bleeds on them.
Okay, so you know what's coming, Lee. Why do you think they cut this scene?
Could be pacing. Maybe it showed too much of the alien or made it seem weaker or stupid. If I had to put money, I'd say it's probably too similar to the climactic finale of the film. And, in my money, that's why it was cut. What do you reckon?
Yeah, I imagine pacing was, most likely the reason, but showing too much of the alien, I think, is a good shout too. I mean, it may also have, tipped us off that someone is working against the crew a little too, much, which I think
Hmm.
could impact the Ash reveal that's kind of coming a bit later.
Yeah.
Anyway, Ripley heads to Mother with her newly acquired clearance and quickly ascertains that her suspicions about Ash are correct. He is working for the company to retrieve a living sample of the organism at all costs, and her and the crew are expendable. I mean, it's
Yeah.
shocking, shocking behavior, isn't
What
it,
a
from the
bastard.
company, Lee?
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
Unbelievable.
So it's a nice little moment of unease as Ash is revealed to be sitting right next to her at just after the 1 hour, 20-minute mark.
In the Hill Draft, things are slightly different as Ash smashes his hand through the computer that's sitting in front of Ripley.
Ripley is somewhat upset and leaves to find the others before Ash traps her in the same room as him.
Note how Ripley's nose has started bleeding, and this is a holdover from the partially filmed airlock scene that was cut from the film that we spoke about a minute ago.
Nice. Ripley notes that Ash has started perspiring a milky white liquid before he viciously attacks her, ripping out a chunk of her hair and repeatedly tossing her across the room before trying to throat fuck her to death with a porno mag.
I love the way Ash is getting increasingly twitchy and unstable throughout this scene.
Yeah, it's quite unnerving. Thankfully, Parker and Lambert arrive, and the big man quite literally knocks Ash's block off with a fire extinguisher, revealing the diabolical truth, Lee, that Ash is really an android sent by the company, those fucks.
Mm.
The unexpected decapitation clocks in at 1 hour, 23 minutes, and 15 seconds.
Yeah, this largely plays out as written in the Hill Draft, although there is no attempted murder by magazine in there. In the O'Bannon draft, there's no Ash, no android. So instead, believing the aliens sealed on the lower decks, the remaining crew set to translating the creature's life cycle via alien hieroglyphics found in the pyramid. They ascertain that the alien is in the final stage of its life cycle, and therefore logic dictates that the cycle will restart, meaning they will soon have scores of eggs to contend with. And while this is going on, Faust spots the alien in the airlock, leading to the precursor for the deleted airlock scene. Only this time, Faust is crushed by the door as the alien escapes, and the ship loses all but 6 hours of its remaining oxygen supply. The clock is most definitely ticking down for the crew of the Snark.
Yeah. So back in the film, and Ripley decides to fire up Ash's severed head to try and get some information on how to kill the alien. And this leads to an absolutely cracking little monologue dialogue.
It is a great one, but it plays significantly different in the Hill draft, so check out how they handled it.
Ripley, the transmission was a warning. Ash, yes, and frighteningly specific. The derelict spacecraft landed on the planet. Like Kane, they encountered one of the alien spores. Before they all died, they managed to set up the warning. Ripley, how do we kill it? Ash, I don't think you can, but I still might be able to help you. I'm not exactly my best at the moment. If you would reconnect. Ripley, nice try, Ash, but no way. Ash, you idiots. You still don't realize what you're dealing with. The alien is a perfect organism, superbly structured, cunning, quintessentially violent. With your limited capabilities, you have no chance against it. Lambert, my God, you admire it. Ash, how can you not admire the simple symmetry it presents? An intergalactic parasite from time immemorial, capable of laying dormant for infinite periods, its sole purpose to destroy other species merely to recreate itself for life and anti-life. Parker, I've heard enough of this shit. Ripley, we built you. You're supposed to be part of our survival equipment. Ash, you gave me intelligence. With intellect comes the inevitability of choice. I have had the rare honor of witnessing one of those moments when a major evolutionary step is taken. Two highly successful species in immediate competition for resources and survival. I'm loyal only to discovering the truth. A scientific truth demands beauty, harmony, and above all, simplicity. The problem between you and the alien will produce a simple and elegant solution. Only one of you will survive. Parker, I say pull the plug. Lambert, I agree. Ripley starts to undo the wires. Ash smiles. Ash, a last word, a legacy if you will. Ripley pauses, most of the wires undone. Ash's voice slowing. Ash, maybe it's intelligent. Maybe you should try to communicate with it. Ripley, did you? Ash, please let my grave hold some secrets. Ripley pulls the plug. Ripley, goodbye, Ash. Yeah, so that's pretty cool. I mean, I can see why they trimmed the fat a little bit, so to speak, but it's still a really cool piece of dialogue.
Yeah, absolutely agreed.
So, with Ash interrogated and deactivated for good, Ripley announces they are blowing up the ship.
Yes, you go, girl. Also, start of Act 3, do you think?
Yeah, I'd agree there, Lee. Yeah.
Nice. So in the O'Bannon draft, the decision is made to try and force the alien into the lifeboat and then blast the whole thing into space, as there is only capacity for one aboard. Also in the Hill script, Lambert, ever the optimist, is about done at this point and advocates that they all ingest some handy suicide pills to spare them from a more grisly fate. If I was in her shoes, I'd definitely be keeping a handful of those in my pocket for emergencies.
Yeah, and in a great little character beat from Parker, as Ripley and Lambert leave, he lingers behind just long enough to incinerate Ash's remains with the flamethrower.
Toasty!
Yeah. So the survivors split up as Ripley heads off to prep the shuttle, and Parker and Lambert are sent to gather as much coolant as they can for the shuttle christened the Narcissus. Now, interesting fact for you, Lee, is Narcissus is also a reference to another Joseph Conrad novella, and I think you may have stitched me up with this title, Lee. So I'm not, I'm not entirely sure that I'm actually going to read that title. The book
I did wonder
was
what you were going to do with that.
the book was published in 1897 and focuses on the psychological and moral challenges aboard a merchant ship, very much akin to the plight of the Nostromo. But yes, I'm not going to read that title. You can look online if you wish to discover the title of that book. But Narcissus is in the title. That is all I will say. So, while Ripley is prepping the shuttle, she hears a faint meow and remembers about the damn cat. It's Jonesy, Lee.
Little did they know that this action would inspire one of the most famous screenwriting texts of all time. Also, the script takes pains to note a crucial detail that may have otherwise gone unnoticed. It goes like this: Ripley runs out of the Narcissus, underlined, leaving the doors open.
Damn. Okay, so meanwhile, Parker and Lambert gather coolant while making as much noise as humanly possible.
Yeah, they've obviously never played Alien Isolation before.
While our coolant collectors do everything short of setting off a nuclear device to attract the aliens' attention, Ripley grabs a futuristic cat carrier to aid her save the cat. She finally tracks the errant Moggy down, but not before the truly fecked off feline hits her with a classic leaping jump scare at 1 hour, 31 minutes, and 30 seconds.
I mean, it's a classic trope for a reason, dude.
Oh, it's so true, isn't it? So Ripley manages to crate the little bugger, while Lambert and Parker continue to make more noise than a goth at a Slipknot concert.
Yeah, I never really paid it much heed before, but it's almost comical how much noise they're making.
Yeah, their complete lack of stealth comes back to bite them, though, quite literally, as the alien looms between them. Parker can't get a shot with the flamethrower because Lambert is paralyzed with fear, and his attempts to save her lead him to a brutal demise. Ripley races to the rescue as she is taunted by Lambert's agonized death screams. And by the time she arrives, it's too late, unfortunately. It's another gruesome scare, clocking in at around the 1 hour, 33-minute mark.
If by now you're feeling justifiably freaked out by the alien, just head to YouTube and Google the deleted alien crab walk scene.
Yeah, so for the uninformed, do describe that scene for us, Lee.
Okay, so rather than loom menacingly behind Lambert, originally the alien just kind of booty shuffled across the floor in a goddamn hilarious attempt to make it appear less humanoid. Scott ultimately cut the scene as, and I quote, "It just looked like a man in a rubber suit doing a spider walk."
Yeah, yeah. Astute observation there, I think. So, regardless of the danger, Ripley is gunning to save her friends, but alas, as we've mentioned, she arrives just too late and must bear witness to the carnage left behind. Now, out of options, Ripley activates the ship's self destruct system, which seems rational at this point, leaving her with 10 minutes before detonation. Time to haul ass, Lee.
Absolutely. Back in the O'Bannon draft, while gathering explosives and supplies, Roby, Standard, and Hunter are drawn to movement on the observation deck, where they encounter Broussard's corpse caught in the ship's external rigging and tapping lifelessly against the viewing window. And back in the Hill draft, we are treated to another infamous deleted scene. Check it out.
Interior, maintenance corridor, sea level. Ripley running toward the engine room. Out of breath, exhausted, she stops, gulping in air. Suddenly, ahead of her, the sound of human weeping. She moves quietly ahead until the source of the sound is directly under her feet. She is standing on a round metal plate. Ripley starts to remove the disc. Interior, undercarriage, maintenance room number 4. The round opening illuminates a dark ladderway. Still carrying the flamethrower, Ripley starts downwards, pitch black. Ripley arrives at deck level, shines her light. Its arc reveals the alien's lair. Bones, shreds of flesh, pieces of clothing, shoes, bizarre extrusions on the wall. Something moves in the darkness. Ripley spins, turns her light towards the movement. Hanging from the ceiling is a huge cocoon, woven from fine, white, silk-like material. Flamethrower ready, Ripley approaches. Sees that the cocoon is semi-transparent, the body of Dallas inside. Unexpectedly, his eyes open. Focus on Ripley. His voice is a whisper. Dallas. Kill me. Ripley. What did it do? Dallas moves his head slightly. Ripley turns her light. Another cocoon dangles from the ceiling, but of a different texture, smaller and darker, with a harder shell, almost exactly like the ovoids in the derelict ship. Dallas. That was Brett. Ripley. I'll get you out of there. We'll get up the autodock. A long moment. It's hopeless. Ripley. What can I do? Dallas. Kill me. Ripley stares at him, raises the flamethrower, sprays a molten blast. Another blast. The entire compartment bursts into flames. Ripley turns and scrambles back up the ladderway. Yeah, so man, I've watched this scene. It's in the deleted scenes on the Alien DVD, and it never fails to kind of freak me out. And honestly, I think it's the most kind of empathy-inducing horror scene I've ever seen. Scarrett and
Mm.
Weaver are just killing it here. But what I'm going to say, Lee? Why do you think it was cut?
Yeah, I mean, I think pacing. I mean, you can find the scene easily on YouTube. Just search Dallas Cocoon Alien, and it runs for about 5 minutes, start to finish. And it's also a little confusing, especially to someone seeing the film for the first time with no prior knowledge of the xenomorph or its insanely convoluted reproductive cycle.
Yeah, I agree. I think that scene playing out at this moment, when all sort of it's all action stations, probably just felt like it slowed the film down a little bit. It's a shame though, because it's super powerful.
Oh, it is. It is. It's horrifying. It, yeah, could arguably have replaced the chestburster scene almost as
Mm.
the talking point for the movie. But it does also, from a canon perspective, bring up the topic of egg morphing.
Okay, so egg morphing?
Okay, so the general consensus is in the absence of a queen alien, which was only added to the canon later in James Cameron's amazing sequel, a drone can initiate egg morphing, whereby it cocoons its prey alive and it is slowly broken down on a genetic level into a xenomorph egg or an ovomorph.
Hmm. Yeah, that somehow sounds even worse than the standard alien life cycle.
Absolutely.
So a desperate and exhausted Ripley dashes for the shuttle now, but finds her path blocked by the alien at 1 hour, 37 minutes, and 30 seconds.
Man, all the gas, the steam, the strobe lights. This reminds me so much of Alien War.
Okay, so what's Alien War?
Oh, dude, Alien War was a UK-based attraction in the early 90s that basically consisted of a closed set built to look like a spaceship where a bunch of people were guided through a containment breach by a couple of actors playing colonial marines while you were being stalked by an alien.
Oh,
They
dear.
used actual props from the films, and it was one of the greatest experiences of my life. I mean, for anyone that wants to learn more about the amazing experience that was Alien War, check out the short film Beneath London, The Story of Alien War on YouTube.
Oh man, was it really that good?
Well, at the risk of relying on inflated childhood memories, yes, it was amazing. I mean, I remember a couple of moments, sort of one where we were all in a pitch black room and the lights went out, and then one of the Marines just kind of tapped a light fitting and it started strobing, and the fucking alien just appeared in the middle of the room. And then there's another where we all got stuck in an elevator that wasn't working, and the alien pulls the doors open and just yanks one of the Marines out. And mate, my pants were well and truly soiled that day.
Oh, childhood memories, eh? Sounds amazing, dude.
It really was. It was one of a kind. But once again, I've wandered off topic. So where are we at in the film again?
Okay, so in the film, with the alien blocking Ripley's route to the shuttle, she hurries back to the self-destruct terminal in order to stop the ship from going nuclear. But alas, she is seconds too late to stop the process, and now she has but 5 minutes to get the hell out of the ship.
Meanwhile, in the O'Bannon draft, the three male survivors once again draw lots to see who will have the privilege of acting as bait to try and lure the alien into the shuttle.
Hmm. So, with the destruction of the Nostromo now imminent, Ripley's only chance of survival is the Narcissus. So she backtracks yet again. This time, the alien is nowhere to be seen, and she is able to make her way into the shuttle and seal herself inside.
Man, she really chucks that cat carrier around, doesn't she? I mean, hopefully, as this is the future, it'll have like built-in shock absorbers or zero G or something. Otherwise, that cat's gonna have one hell of a headache. And speaking of headaches, man, the visuals are on fire here. Smoke, jets of steam, strobe lights make this a headache inducing assault on the senses as Ripley makes her way through the dying ship.
Yeah, the words sensory overload come to mind.
Absolutely, indeed. Now, back to the O'Bannon draft now, as Roby waits by the shuttle to trap the alien, while Standard and Hunter attempt to drive the alien toward him. Obviously, things don't go to plan, of course, and the creature gets the drop on the two men, killing them both and leaving Roby as the last human survivor. With no choice but to try and drive the alien into the shuttle himself, Roby sets off to track it down, and it's here that he discovers the alien's lair and has his own version of the egg morphing scene where he encounters a cocooned Melkonis and Standard. As the only survivor, Roby decides to escape on the shuttle, retrieves enough valuable minerals to make him a wealthy man, and packs the cat in its pressurized cat box. He then sets the Snark to self destruct, putting us roughly back in line with the hill draft.
Yeah, so with the merciless countdown almost exhausted, Ripley detaches the shuttle and accelerates away from the doomed ship. She makes just enough distance before the Nostromo goes nova, and the shuttle is rocked by massive shockwaves. With the danger now past, Ripley settles the cat into the cryopod and goes about prepping the shuttle for unmanned flight.
See, in the O'Bannon draft, Roby traps the alien in the lifeboat and then returns to deactivate the self destruct, only as in the film, it's too late. And he then returns to the lifeboat to find the door open and the small ship seemingly empty. So he battens down inside, ejects the ship, and escapes just in time as the Snark detonates.
So back on screen now, and an exhausted Ripley strips down ready for cryosleep. As she makes final adjustments, she nears some strange looking machinery and boom! One final jump scare at 1 hour, 46 minutes and 45 seconds. The damn alien has been in the shuttle the whole time, Lee, the sneaky
Oh,
shit.
yeah. So another behind the scenes factoid for this bit. Apparently, Sigourney Weaver adamantly refused to how should I put this? Shave her lady garden for this scene. So they had to hire a guy to airbrush her female foliage from each frame, which apparently cost them a small fortune.
Yeah, you go, Sigourney.
Yeah, man, she voted Bush and won. But still, imagine being the guy that did the airbrushing, and then somewhere on his resume it's going to read like VFX work on Alien. And people who see that are going to be like, oh my God, did you work on the face hugger? Like the space jockey, the Nostromo, the alien? And the guy's going to be like, yeah, something like that.
Oh, you're such a savage, Lee.
Hmm.
Well, with Ripley well and truly up shit creek without a paddle, she flees into a nearby closet packed with spacesuits as the alien slowly wakes from its slumber. And I have to say, Lee, I love the fact that you can clearly see the alien before the reveal, but it just kind of blends in with all the machinery in the shuttle. It's absolutely
Mm,
amazing.
it's great.
Ripley carefully dons one of the spacesuits as the alien starts to extricate itself from its resting place, and somebody's gone and turned the bloody strobe lights on again.
Ah, yay, just what my old eyes needed. I wonder how many epileptics have like fallen to this film over the years.
Yes, seizure robots. Because once fully kitted out in the spacesuit, Ripley loads a harpoon gun.
Yeah, in both versions of the script, it's a sharp-tipped metal pole, but this does lead me to the question, why does the shuttle have a harpoon gun?
Space whales?
Space whales.
Actually, to be fair, it looks more like a grappling hook of some kind.
Way to kill my excitement over space whales, dude.
Oh, I'm sorry, but okay, but Ripley makes her way out of the space closet and straps herself into the pilot chair where she uses a control panel to force the alien out of its hiding place with some vented steam. As the creature approaches her, she waits until the last minute before blowing the airlock and sucking the vile villain into the void. But no, the alien is clinging to the airlock hatch for all it's worth until Ripley blasts it with the grappling gun and sends it careening into one of the engine ports. She seals the door, fires up the engine, and Bob's your uncle, the alien is blasted into space. With nothing left to do but make a final recording chronicling the fate of the Nostromo, Ripley and the cat enter cryosleep. And that, my friends, is all she wrote. So how do the different scripts handle this final confrontation, Lee?
Okay, so they're both pretty similar, to be fair. In both drafts, the alien very nearly drags Ripley slash Roby out of the airlock with it, but otherwise they're very close to what's on film. In the O'Bannon draft, we get another full-page illustration, this time of Roby booting the alien from the airlock. And in the script, as the shuttle drifts toward Earth, we are made aware of a spore pod slash egg stuck to the outside of the craft. Dun dun dun. So come on, my man. I know Alien is in your top five, so I'm expecting high praise. What did you think?
Well, Lee, I mean, no secret, I absolutely love this film. I think it's almost perfect. And I think it's utterly genre defining and it's influential as hell. And I think, the enduring place the Alien sort of franchise and the Alien design holds in our culture is kind of testament to that.
Yeah.
The tension the film evokes is something truly, truly special. It's kind of visceral and it's palpable, and it's rare when you get, a film where everything is firing on all cylinders like this. The design, the acting, the lighting, sound design, the score, the direction. And the impact this film has when you watch it for the first time is something that just stayed with me and got me interested in the mechanics of filmmaking. So yeah, top five movies all day long, easy, love it, Lee.
Nice. Yeah, I mean, I've got to admit, I've always seen Alien as being a weaker film than Aliens, but having really broken it down this past week, I have to say I hold it in much higher regard now. I mean, don't get me wrong, I've always loved the film and appreciated its genius and its impact, but I think sometimes you have to look at something through a certain lens to fully appreciate just what it brings to the table, you know?
Yeah, man. Yeah, yeah. Okay, then, dude, let's break this baby down. Okay, so as I'm sure you're all aware, we begin our breakdown with a retrospective look at our reasons for choosing the film.
Okay, so first off, let's talk about that holy shit scene. Undoubtedly one of the most iconic scenes in movie history.
Yeah, so what's your thoughts on what made this particular scene so iconic?
So many factors went into making this what it was. I mean, the chestburster design, the stellar performances, and just the shocking unpredictability of it. I mean, we know something is going to happen and that Kane will most likely be at the center of it, but we've no idea what. And can you imagine seeing this movie for the first time and having absolutely no idea what was about to happen? I'm so envious of those people. I mean, by the time I finally saw Alien, I was already well versed in the alien mythology through comics, video games, etc. I knew all about face huggers and chest bursters, and I'd already seen Aliens many times over.
Okay, yeah, man. I mean, I got the initial experience watching this and, not really knowing anything about it. So, although it wasn't in a cinema, I did get that kind of initial shock the first
Mm.
time I saw it. But can you imagine, like, that scene in a cinema, like the first time surrounded by other people? I think it was, I can't remember where it was exactly, but I've definitely heard Ridley Scott talking about this. And he would go into screenings and he saw people experiencing, genuine kind of terror as this sort of film progresses. And saw one guy kind of crawling out the theater, hands and knees. It's like it's so masterfully created. It's really amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Anyway, so what about forging a well-rounded, iconic protagonist like we find here in Ripley?
I mean, Ripley works so well for so many reasons. I mean, she isn't perfect by any means. Sometimes she comes across as aloof or detached. She's not the most popular member of the crew, but literally every time the chips are down, she steps up without fail. So let's tick off. And one, I mean, she's the only one who tries to stop Kane from reboarding the ship. Yes, it's a cold action, but it's also the smart choice and ultimately the right choice. So this shows us that she's smart and she's intelligent and she's independent. Two, she's the first to volunteer to go into the air ducts. This shows us that she's brave and she feels responsible for the crew. Three, when Parker and Lambert are attacked, she rushes straight there despite the danger, again showing bravery and compassion. And ultimately, she even saves the goddamn cat, dude.
Yeah, literally saves the cat, right? Um, yeah, I mean, I think that's all spot on, Lee. I mean, I think, the one thing for me is as well that's interesting is she kind of emerges from the pack as well. I
Mm,
mean, going in, you wouldn't expect Ripley to emerge as the kind of protagonist or the kind of hero of the piece. And I mean, it really starts in kind of an ensemble way for the most part. But I gotta say, I think, another reason that this works so well is how the characters are kind of drawn and set up. There's nothing overblown about how the crew is introduced, and the dynamics at play, really serves to add to the sort of tension and the power and to the impact of what's going on.
Hmm.
I think Ripley is also just sort of really well set up. You don't, as I say, you don't really expect her to emerge as kind of the leader, and this adds to the peril. I think it's also an amazing performance from Sigourney Weaver too, man. Okay, so let's look at our characters. Are there any introductions that stood out to you as particularly effective or memorable?
Yeah, Ripley, warrant officer.
Yeah, what even is a warrant officer, dude?
Well, wielding my Google Foo tells me warrant officers are technical experts, specialists, or senior leaders in a particular field, giving the title holder more authority than enlisted ranks, but without the full commission of a traditional officer. In all seriousness, the character introductions are so bare bones in this script, intentionally, though, let's remember, so as the characters could be cast as literally any actor over a certain age on the planet. And it's really interesting, a really interesting approach, which you don't see very often. I mean, how about yourself?
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, dude, I mean, I really like this approach as well. So leaving it open to allow interpretation regarding casting, I think, is a great way to sort of initiate collaboration.
Hmm.
I also think this is one of those occasions where the script really initiates this kind of workmanlike way the crew is presented in the film.
Yeah.
And this heightens the reality of the whole thing, and no one really stands out from the crowd. So, as a viewer, you're not sure who the hero in air quotes is going to be. And the dynamics between the characters, really sort of comes to the fore initially. And we
Yeah.
get just enough information on each character, and you're off, right? The narrative really starts kicking up. Yeah, I think this kind of grounded approach, influenced by the script, means by the time the shit hits the fan, your sort of disbelief is well and truly gone. And the tension created by this is all the greater for it because everyone's in mortal danger, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay, so before we break down the scarology, did you have a scariest moment?
Yeah, I did. For me, it's when the alien kills Lambert and Parker. There's just something about Veronica Cartwright's screams in this scene that I find really unnerving. Every time I hear it, I'm convinced I'm actually listening to someone being brutally murdered. What was yours?
Yeah, man. Yeah, so for me, it was always the scene where Dallas dies, and we get that awesome shot of the alien in the air vent, and it's just
Hmm.
such a great sequence. It's so tense. All right, then. So let's talk about scarology. First of all, yes or no answer. Does the film more or less conform to the 10-minute rule?
It does not.
Okay, so break it down for us.
Okay, so our first real scare, the facehugger attack, doesn't occur until just over a quarter of the way through the film at 34 minutes and 30 seconds. After this, the scares come pretty thick and fast, with like the parasite facehugger's full reveal at 36 minutes and 45 seconds, subsequent disappearance at 46:45 seconds, and the discovery of its corpse at 48 and 35 seconds. Things then escalate with our iconic holy shit scene at 55 minutes and 20 seconds. Then a little over 10 minutes later, at an hour, 7 minutes and 30, we see the full grown alien xenomorph creature for the first time. And it's at this point that the hunters become the hunted. Then Dallas checks out at about an hour, 15 minutes and 40 seconds, and Ash's true nature is revealed shortly after that at 1 hour and 20 minutes. And then you've got his attempted murder of Ripley at 1 hour, 23 minutes and 15 seconds. That's followed up by a cheap cat jump scare at 1 hour 31 and 30, followed by the alien pulling double duty, taking out Parker and Lambert at 1 hour and 33 minutes. Ripley finding herself cut off from the shuttle at 1 hour 37 and 30, and then our final reveal of the alien in the shuttle hits at 1 hour 46 minutes and 45 seconds.
Cool. So let us break down those acts for you. So Act One consists of just one real scare, but it's a banger with the face
Hmm.
hugger attack on Kane. Things pick up significantly in Act Two with 8 scares, fairly evenly paced, which pretty much hold to the 10-minute rule. Act Three gives us 4 scares, again within the 10-minute rule, but it's worth mentioning that each act nicely escalates the ambient tension considerably.
Fantastic. I mean, and do you have any thoughts on the themes at work here?
Okay, so well, I think the fear of death is really present, obviously here, and the sense of kind of as I said, mortal peril is really strong.
Yeah.
There's a definite kind of socioeconomic class slash corporate greed thing happening. And this plays out great between the crew. You know, you have the kind of oily rags in Parker and Brett, these mid-level squabbles with Ash, Ripley, and Lambert, and then what feels like the sort of upper strata in the hierarchy with Kane and Dallas. But they're all kind of subservient to, you know, what the company wants, right? It's
Yeah.
like Dallas says to Ripley, you know, the job is to do whatever the company tells you to do. And I think there are some religious themes kind of happening here too, in some way. And
Mm.
that seems coupled with a form of sort of corruption of motherhood thematic. I mean, the computer's called Mother.
Mm.
And we have this kind of, I don't know, odd, like virgin birth sort of situation going on.
Yeah.
And you know, the mother is kind of in this kind of cloistery sort of vestibule, sort of cathedral looking,
Yeah.
candle lit sort of situation. So that's probably quite interesting. But I
Mm.
think a lot of this is kind of explored in greater detail in the sequels and the prequels, you know. Certainly the motherhood sort of aspect of
Yeah.
things. What about you? What do you think, dude?
I mean, beside, as you said, the obvious fear of death, fear of the unknown, you've got that underlying theme of corporate greed. Like you say, Parker and Brett are all about the money. The crew are threatened with loss of payment, but even the payment is in shares. You know, everything is dominated by this seedy corporate overtone. You also have the gender reversal aspect, not just Ripley emerging as the hero, but with Kane being the victim of what basically amounts to a sexual assault and being forced to bear the offspring of his attacker. So, by reversing these roles, the film becomes both unpredictable and highly unsettling, especially to a male audience.
Yeah, that's really interesting, dude. I hadn't really sort of thought of that. That's really good. Yeah. And what, if anything, do you think you've learned from this script?
For me, the real learning point was seeing both the similarities and the differences between the two scripts. You know, how the Hill draft takes all the best stuff from the O'Bannon draft and just refines and improves upon it. I'm not a huge fan of the writing style in the Hill draft. For me, it's a little too sparse. It almost reads like a list of bullet points sometimes. But on the flip side, the O'Bannon draft has, I feel, much weaker dialogue and often feels just a little overwritten. I mean, what about you, bud?
Yeah, so I agree for the most part. I mean, I actually like the way the Hill script reads, and found the sort of sparseness of it quite engaging. I
Mm.
think that style is just great for initiating collaboration, as I mentioned earlier.
Yeah.
I think the O'Bannon script felt much more like a kind of 50s sci-fi serial, and you know, is like a tad hokey at times.
Yeah.
And whenever there's someone called Chaz in a script, Lee, my eyes roll a little bit. I think definitely what comes across for me is the tonal difference. You know, O'Bannon's
Yeah.
script felt somehow lighter and more sort of sanitized, and the Hill script is tonally much darker and much more tense, and
Yeah.
has this feel similar to the Bill sort of Lancaster script for The Thing, you know.
Mm.
So learning wise, I guess it was how the two scripts differ in terms of their tone and how the language and format can be used to influence that, I think is the main
Yeah.
learning for me.
Nice.
Okay, well, I think we're almost done here, dude. So before we wrap up and talk about our next episode, what would you rate the script and film here?
The film's a 10, obviously. I mean, I was going to give it a 9, but like I mentioned earlier, this analysis has kind of given my love of the movie a shot in the arm, as it were.
Nice.
As for the scripts, I'm going to give the O'Bannon draft a 6 and the Hill draft a 7. And before anybody thinks I'm slating O'Bannon, let's not forget that the Hill draft mostly just took what O'Bannon had already done and improved upon it.
Yeah, no, I'd agree with that totally. I mean, controversially, I think I'm going to join you in giving the film a 10, Lee. I mean,
Nice.
I was going to go for a 9.5,
Mm.
just a general principle, but I didn't want to sort of twist your tits too much on that one. I think the O'Bannon script, you know, I agree with you on that one. I gave it a 6. Hill's script, I think, is much stronger for me, and I gave that an 8.
Okay, so that's is that a perfect score for the film? 20 out of 20. Is that a first for us?
Boom. I think that's firstly. It's our
Nice.
first perfect score.
Perfect score. Not my first perfect score, but our
No,
first perfect score.
our first collective perfect score.
Collective, yes. Then we have 12 out of 20 for the O'Bannon draft and 15 out of 20 for the Hill draft.
Yeah, so I think that's about right, isn't it?
I think so. Yeah, I think that's pretty fair going there.
Good stuff. Okay, so
Nice.
what's on the agenda for next time, Lee?
Next time on the Script to Screen podcast, we are going to be looking at one of the modern day darlings of horror cinema, Jennifer Kent's The Babadook.
Okay. I've never seen this.
Oh, I think you'll like it. I think it'll be right up your alley.
Okay, good stuff. Look forward to that then. Okay, so if you enjoyed the podcast, please hit like, subscribe, and if you're feeling very generous, feel free to leave us a review on your podcatcher of choice. Check out our socials. We are on Facebook and Blue Sky for the most part and can be reached there. We also publish to YouTube, so you can listen to us there. No visuals currently, but plenty of audio goodness. Feel free to drop us a line with any thoughts on our website. That's www.scripttoscreenpodcast.com. And we always love hearing from you guys and hearing what you have to say. And if you have any suggestions for films, do sling us those as well. We'd love to see those. But until next time, do take care.
Ignore those alien distress calls, keep your face away from suspicious objects, and most importantly of all, keep riding those scares, people.